Good day, Specimen. It's Thursday, it's Izen here, and what we have to go over today is a surprise, because we were on our way looking over some of the interesting and popular specs to play for 9.2 and how they were doing, and why you could have been interested in playing them, but instead, I guess Blizzard was true to their word. They were going on a break for the holidays, and yesterday we had the Legion Time Walking event ending, and Blizzard went back to work, and I guess they were quite quick, because right as of today we have gotten some more changes and additions to the PTR for 9.2. We have gotten some additions in regards to balance when it comes to tier sets of 9.2, and then we have gotten some cosmetic changes and some extra additions that we're gonna have to go over through for today. But as usual, when we talk about changes, we have to start with what players generally focus more on, which is player power, character power, changes to your specs. So we have to start with that first. We have the addition, the official addition to what was announced a couple of weeks ago, which were the tier set changes, additional tier set changes to some of the specs. First one being Rogue. We had two changes, one to Assassination and one to Outlaw. The Assassination change was the 2-piece set bonus. Instead of your Shiv increasing the crit chance of your bleeds by 25%, now your Shiv is going to cause enemies within 5 yards to take 100% more damage from your poisons and your bleeds. So, quite a significant increase in power for this 2-piece set bonus for Assassination. Then we have the change to Outlaw. The change is going to touch the 4-piece instead. Previously, the effect of the set bonus was going to make your Between the Eyes cooldown reset and cost no energy. The new version of this tier set is going to make your next pistol shot also freely cast Between the Eyes as though 6 combo points were spent. So you're basically going to save a GCD. You no longer have to manually cast Between the Eyes yourself. It's going to get auto-casted with pistol shot. The more significant change, however, was announced for Resto Druid. Resto Druid is not in too good of a position right now for both Mythic Plus and Raid Encounters. It's doing much better in PvP compared to PvE, and it was quite disappointing for Druid players to see the tier set because it was quite bad. It was more than being bad, is because it was misjudged. It was based on an ability Swiftmend, which is not too powerful, it is not too used, and it wasn't really too strong or interesting either. So the initial 2-piece of the Resto Druid was going to buff the healing of your Swiftmend based on each periodic healing on the target, which is okay, but quite boring. Instead, now healing from rejuvenation has a 25% chance to leave behind an extra hot, renewing bloom. This hot can also be consumed. It's going to gain priority when Swiftmend tries to consume a healing over time on the target. This is quite good because this hot is quite weak. It's not very powerful. The reason why it is good is because the Resto Druid Mastery makes you heal more on the target for every hot you have. So this 2-piece set bonus giving you an extra hot is very good for your mastery. And it's good that Swiftmend consumes it first, because this is also going to be basically your weakest hot in your entire kit. So this was already a pretty positive change for the tier sets of Resto Druid. It gets even better with the 4-piece set bonus, because the original 4-piece set bonus was quite disappointing, to say the least. It was making your Swiftmend heal 4 nearby allies for 25% of the healing done. Very situational. It would have been quite clunky to use and to gain good effect from this. Instead, now it gets changed to something much better. Every 3 casts of Swiftmend grants you Incarnation 3 of life for 9 seconds. This is much stronger. Now you can bank on 2 charges of this 4-piece and then save your 3rd charge to whenever you want to turn into Incarnation, whenever there is a heavy round of damage from a boss and you don't have your own Incarnation cooldown available or talented in the first place. You can land a 3rd Swiftmend and get your 9 seconds of Incarnation. This is much better for your throughput, much better for your HPS. It's gonna get perhaps not as much value in Mythic Plus. You're much more freely using Swiftmend in Mythic Plus for your single target healing as opposed to Raid Encounters, but you are still going to be able to find much more value in Mythic Plus compared to your previous 4-piece set bonus. So definitely a significant improvement for Resto Druid. For the last tier set change, we have Prot Warrior. This one is not just a change that was announced, but it was also changed. Again, the initial tier set for Prot Warrior was going to give you a buff whenever you consumed 30 rage. Every time you reached 8 stacks of this buff, you were able to choose whether or not you wanted to make your next Shield Slam or your next Thunderclap be 200% more effective, or if you wanted your next Ignore Pain be 50% more effective. So you had to decide, do you want to do more damage, do you want to be more defensive with this buff? Instead, the change that came through is going to allow you to do both at the same time. The wording on the initial part of the set has been changed, but it's going to work exactly the same. Every 30 rage you will gain a stack. Once you reach 8 stacks you gain the buff, and you can now gain 200% more effect on Shield Slam or Thunderclap, and either one is also going to give you Ignore Pain. So instead of getting a 50% stronger Ignore Pain but nothing else, like you could have gotten in the previous version of this tier set, you can now get a free Ignore Pain while also doing more damage, while also getting a 200% more effective Thunderclap, for example. So this is quite good, specifically for the damage part, allowing you to continue to do damage while also having an extra defensive part to this tier set. Is very good for tanks, particularly good in Mythic Plus, where you want damage as a tank, you want to be able to defend yourself while doing damage. It's quite good. In raid encounters, as usual, in raid encounters, damage is not as crucial, it's not that necessary, but it's still gonna be serviceable and better than what you had before. Now, outside of these balance changes that were sent through the PTR, we have, finally, we have a great moment. This is something I have bitched about for weeks, as we went through the PTR, and I illustrated to you all the entries from Blizzard of the new soul shape forms of Night Fae. We start the expansion, you've got 30 of them, and then we go up to 50, to 70, 80 different soul shapes, and I was getting triggered more and more and more because our poor shaman still had just the transparent, the bluish transparent Ghost Wolf and the Raptor. That was it. So it is a momentous occasion to point out that in 9.2, shamans are going to be given the glyph of the spectral Vulpine and the glyph of the spectral Lupine. So this is the Vulpine that you're going to be able to get and use as a shaman, and this, much cooler, much more new model, is going to be the Lupine that you're going to be able to use as a shaman. So far, it's not quite known where you're going to be able to get either of these two. We know one comes from the materials inside of Zereth Mortis, so it's likely going to be acquired from the new system, the new activity in Zereth Mortis. Perhaps even the other one will be the same. We just don't know yet. You know, being a glyph for a movement form, it should be quite easy to obtain. It shouldn't be some sort of super secret activity you have to pull off to be able to earn this. It should be quite simple. Another addition to the PTR has been the final, perhaps the final form of the Warlock tier set. If you remember, the original reveal of the Warlock tier set raised some eyebrows and raised some white hoods as well, because some people made the connection that this hood, from certain angles particularly, kind of looked like the clan hood, which is a quite weird and awkward situation to be in when you're wearing this set piece. So Blizzard went to work trying to change how the tier set looked, but they weren't, changing it enough, I feel like, because this was the second pass they had at the set. They just added a black border on the front and a black border in the back. It still looked like a white hood. So now, finally, they have the third iteration of this set. They went away with the pointy hood. Now it's just a normal hood resting on your head, and they added horns. For some reason, Warlocks, when you don't know what to do with a Warlock tier set, just give it horns. Apparently it works, so fine. Now you have horns, golden horns, as a Warlock. That's a first. So this is the current, possibly last, change to the Warlock tier set. Other additions? Yes, we have some more. We have the addition of the new infinite Augment Rune coming in Eternity's End. Now, to be perfectly honest, Blizzard, this expansion kind of showered you in Augment Runes. You know, they made them more and more available from your mission table, to the point that now, if you just log in every now and then, perhaps even with just a couple of characters, you're gonna be getting 2-3 stacks of runes per week without even trying too hard. So it's not that they were as pricey as before or as rare as before to obtain, but still, in 9.2, from the faction of Zareth Mortis, the Enlightened, once you reach Exalted, you will be able to spend 40,000 gold to get this infinite Augment Rune. Now, the interesting part of this, I know it was quite certain already, it's not that we had that many questions about it, but the infinite Augment Rune that we have gotten in previous expansions came with the last raid tier of the expansion. So you get it at the end. We have gotten this type of rune for 5, I think, expansions in a row. At the end expansion, I think the only one out was Legion, where we also got one of these runes in the Broken Isles for Tomb of Sargeras as well. So this might also point towards a confirmation, of course, that 9.2 is going to be the last major, at the very least, the last major patch of the expansion. Some people have been complaining. Of course, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't people complain? Some people have complained about the cost. You know, 40,000 gold for some runes. You know, it depends on your server. Sure, sometimes these runes go for 100 gold, sometimes they go for 250 gold, but when you go through an entire raid night, you can wipe upwards of 30 to 40 times. So if you had to rune 30 to 40 times, you would end up making back the cost of this infinite rune item in about 3 weeks worth of raiding. So after 3 weeks, it's basically free runes. It's basically getting them for free without even having to bother to do the mission tables anymore. So I think it's always has been, but even now it's still quite worth to go for this item. For Mythic Plus as well, it's still gonna be probably worth, even though in Mythic Plus you're likely going to use it much less often than a raid encounter, unless you're shit and you keep dying every 5 minutes. And staying for a second in Mythic Plus, we have an adjustment for 9.2. This is expected, of course. The rating requirements for your Keystone achievements, the Keystone Conqueror, the Keystone Explorer, and the Keystone Master have been changed. They have been raised. Why have they been raised? Because the other piece of news, which is also not a piece of news, but a confirmation, obviously, is that Tazavesh is going to be part of the Mythic Plus pool of dungeons. Mythic Plus is going to have Tazavesh split into the first part, Tazavesh Streets of Wonder, and the second part, the upper part, Tazavesh Solia's Gambit. So having 2 extra dungeons that you have to do in Tyrannical and in Fortified, so basically 4 more dungeons to be part of your rating system, the ratings have been increased. Keystone Explorer goes from requiring 750 rating to requiring 900. Keystone Conqueror goes from requiring 1500 to requiring 1850. And Keystone Master, the more important one, goes from requiring 2000 rating to requiring 2500. So we go from a 150 increase in Keystone Explorer, 350 increase in Keystone Conqueror, and 500 rating increase in Keystone Master, just to make up for the number of dungeons being increased. It's not really going to change the fact that you're going to have to more or less do Mythic Plus keys around level 15 to gain Keystone Master. So now that we have gone through all of the changes being added in 9.2, we have to leave with what is going to be available in 9.2, which is more raid testing. After a couple of weeks pause, we go back to testing raid bosses. This is more relevant because we are starting to get some more mythic bosses being tested. Today, on Thursday, we are getting Dosen, the Fallen Oracle. We're getting Skolex, the Insatiable Ravener, and then tomorrow we have Lihuvim and Zymox, rebooted 2.0 for Mythic. Interesting point, we still don't have double legendary for the record. We still don't have the testing for the double legendary feature. It's likely that, of course, these bosses are going to be toned down to account for the fact that characters are weaker without having a second legendary to be equipped. But in the end, to close out this video, it is pretty reassuring that we are getting back into PTR changes and addition and polishing this early into January. I'm still standing by the prophecy of the average length of a PTR cycle for the past 4 expansions, which is gonna put the release of 9.2 on February the 15th. So we will see just exactly how close am I going to be to the actual date of release. For now, however, I can leave you to the rest of your Thursday. As usual, thank you guys for watching the video. If you want to support the channel, continue supporting the channel, you can leave a like on the video, you can comment down below, and as usual, you can also subscribe to the channel. For today, only as an appreciation for the PTR testers, only the players who have gone into the PTR and tested the new features can subscribe. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, okay, my campaign for getting the new shaman forms has been successful. Now my next campaign is going to be complain about when are we going to know the Season 3 affix for Mythic Plus.